tonight's program. We have Shrewsbury's Old Home Week celebration 1907 by Linda Davis. Long before Spirit of Shrewsbury Fall Festival residents celebrated Old Home Week on August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 1907. Join us as we share archival images of the parade and events that welcomed absent sons and daughters as they return home to make fresh memories. Linda Davis is the curator of the Shrewsbury Historical Society, specializing in collection, preservation, and exhibits. She has also presented several programs for the Society. Linda.
As a curator, I come across lots of odd things. We were told once that there was nothing else we could do for programs that had to do with Shrewsbury. It had all been covered. Well, that's not true because I find something every couple of weeks. Maybe not enough to do a program on, but. So this is a box here, and within that box is clippings, mostly postcard images, invitations and stuff for an event that was held in 1907. And, you know, we have all these giant things, and, you know, there's the selected few that do the committees and stuff. When we had this, everyone in town was involved. Now, granted, we have a population of an extreme amount now, when we had probably about 2,000 at the time, but everyone got involved. So you may ask, like, what is Old Home Week? Is it you walk around looking at old homes, or what do you do? Old Home Week was originally an idea that came out of New Hampshire around 1899. You got to remember that our country had gone through some really difficult times up to that point. We had come off the Civil War. We had that horrible depression in the late, say, 1893 to 97. And there was a constant lure for free land and opportunities, job opportunities, business opportunities as our country moved west. So what was happening is New England towns were losing a lot of their people. They were moving on to other places for all kinds of reasons. The gentleman was the governor of New Hampshire. His name was Frank Rawlins. And he had this idea to bring back people to his state, people that had wandered off, or, you know, you got to remember too, at that time, just like in Shrewsbury, New England was very agricultural. And when you had a place like Lowell that was offering, at that time, substantial money to come and work at the mills, people were leaving the farms. Like there's a small town up in New Hampshire that's called Sandwich. Sandwich disappeared because of Lowell and Lawrence and the mills, because basically there's so many people left, or young people, the people that would have carried on the farms and stuff, left to come and work in mills. I think once they got there, they wished they had stayed home. And with our 300th anniversary coming up, I thought this would be a nice event to talk about, because this one was very unique, and it appears that it's the only one we had. Lots of other towns did it every 10 years and stuff, but it seems like we only did this in 1907. So I'm not quite sure why, but that seems to be the... So we'll do the pictures that you're seeing on the front here. That is the Old Town Hall, the program that was put out, and this is Hickey's. My glasses on here. The parade, they had parades and bonfires and everything. I'll go through the different days in a minute. But everything was decorated. And where the idea came from, I'm not really certain. From what I can read, the Women's Club and the Shrewsbury Historical Society came up with the idea. And it's probably a situation like, you know, say the Women's Club, a bunch of them are sitting around going, hey, I wonder what happened to so-and-so, or whatever. And the idea kind of blossomed. And then, of course, with New Hampshire doing it and whatnot, they had some kind of a format of what was being done. Um, and like I say, because they were becoming so concerned about the fact that people were leaving. I mean, people think that because we lived in a small town of Shrewsbury, everybody was born here, worked here, lived here, families, and died here. And that's so untrue. People were wandering every place. So, you know, the idea of people just staying in town is not really true at all. So we had lost our own a bunch. And don't forget, in the late 1700s, we cut off part of our population by giving Boylston its own town. So our population was maybe, say, 1,200, and it dropped down to, say, 900 when Boylston was incorporated in its own town. So it seems like I say, it seems like the Women's Club, the Historical Society, a bunch of people must have came in contact with the information about an old home week up in New Hampshire and said, hey, we should do something like that. So in March of 1907, the idea was presented at the town meeting, and the idea was, it was voted on, and the town agreed to an appropriation of $300 for the purpose. What that equals in this money, I can't calculate that, but it was a fair amount of money, I suppose. And so they started all of these committees. They said they could not afford to give us the money unless we had some committees and some kind of a game plan, essentially. So they put together committees and whatnot, and they started working. When they had a good program laid out, they brought it back to the town, and the town was very happy with it, and they offered the Old Home Week celebration another $400. So we started with about $700 from the town to do this program. The committees started getting together, and they started coming up with ideas of what they could do, and, you know, who should be sending out invitations. So Clara Ward had taken on that job, and she had certain invitations and stuff like that made up, and she sent them out to people that were either, well, the residents got them too, but people that were lost. I'm probably going the wrong way. Here it is. So we're going to share a bunch of images, and Chris and I kind of set this up so that we'll have it like kind of each day that went and what was going on during the day. So, and some of the questions we were thinking, you know, as you're reading along with things or listening, you know, you can kind of think of some of these things for like at the end, if something, you know, doesn't make any sense to you, go, well, why did they do that? You know, so, you know, where did the old home get their origins? So we think it was, you know, that type of situation where news traveled faster than you think back then. Can't see. Okay, so the special festivities, it was during a community invites former residents to return for a reunion and social activities. Individuals who had grown up in the community and had moved elsewhere in adulthood were invited to visit their old hometown. And, you know, and they were everywhere. We had people in New York, New Jersey. I'll give you a list later on of some of the places that they were. Now, this one, Chris put this together. This gives you a general idea of population. So we had maybe 1,900 people in town at the time that this event went on. And these are some of the sources. They're up front here. You can look at them afterwards. We have a whole book that was just Old Home Week, and it's identified as photographs, but as I went along and found all these little clippings and, you know, all these other things, I just encompassed everything into one folder. And there also was the financial for the end of the year in 1908, which discussed the Old Home Week. Let me try to. Okay, here are some of the official invitations and announcements. Um, I don't want to move from the podium. um, the first one was a report that came out that the town had voted on Old Home Week and had chosen committees to carry this ahead. And then this was an invitation that was sent. I think this is the one that Clara Ward put together. That was sent out. Like I say, did go out to town residents as well, but it did go out to anyone that had left town, and they were hoping to draw back. If someone's letter came back, they would try again. They'd hunt down another address. Some of these people they tried to connect with maybe 5 or 6 times before they either hit it or, gave up. So that was a thing stating that they would like that people to come home, be present, come home to where you were birthed, come home to your family, come home and just see how the town had changed or not changed in the years that they were gone. The other committee that was huge was the illuminating committee. They were in charge of, believe it or not, electric lights, Japanese lanterns, fireworks, bonfires, all kinds of things. And this was one of the things here, that to advertise the celebration, they had special envelopes printed up so that when they came back to the town, they were easily identified as a response to the invitation to come back to town. Now, not everybody obviously was able to come back, but we had probably about 2,000 people, that did make contact, and some of them came back, some of them didn't, but and they sent out a program too that said, this is what we're hoping to do. We would like you to be able to be here for these events. This is some of the old Home Week committees. Now remember, we had to have some of these committees put together before June. And because of this, the town gave us more money to put this together and have more events. So we had reception committees. You'll recognize a lot of these names. These are people that everyone in town is aware of and knows. And I mean, you've got the Prairies, you've got the Wymans, of course, the Hollows. You've got Romeo Allen, and you've got Frank Hickey, he was the chief marshal, the Winchesters, the Rices, the Gates, the Stones. So, and the committees were all they had like a reception committee, and they have an invitation and decoration and parade and illumination, all kinds of things. But each group worked together. And so in that article there lists all of the names of every committee. That was what was really very cool about old newspaper articles, is they didn't miss a trick. They listed everything. And because of that, we're able to take that little box down there and put a program together because of their detail. These were 3 of children. Welcome back the children. We had, let me see. Let me look here and see if I have the names here. It'll be easier for me to read. We had Herbert Maynard. We had Frank Hickey. And who's the one in the middle, Chris?
That's Herbert Maynard. Go to the
Yep.
next side. Next side.
So these were the 3 of the citizens that took on the leadership of all of this. And so Frank Hickey, he was our grand marshal, like people in the spirit of Shrewsbury. He was our big man. Maynard was like everything. He kept track of everybody and everything, all the committees. And Henry Harlow was the secretary. So he was the one that was involved in working with the invitations and making sure that people came back. All these people had time to speak and stuff in their during the observances. And so this clipping here talks about an elaborate program for its first observance of an Old Home Week. So it talks about all the different little things that, programs that we're going to plan on doing. Now remember, this money was approved in March, April, and this event was on August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And it takes us 20 years to produce something nowadays. They did it in 5 months. So, and when we get to the thing, you'll be surprised at what they managed to accomplish. So this was the little program that was put together. This was available like after the event and stuff as a kind of a souvenir. There was all these little things in the booklets. People were really big on poetry and stuff back in those days. There was lots of poetry written. And so this was one of the little things that's inside the program. And I thought it would be fun to throw this in because be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. So they were talking about trying, inviting people and bringing them back to their house. These are a couple of the historic buildings that were also kind of put into the town report afterwards. Sumner Houses, Cushing Tavern, the Old Pease Tavern, Ward House. This was our general program. So as time got closer, the program started becoming more solid. And they would these committees would get together like once a week. So it wasn't like a fly-by-night type thing. They weren't like just going, oh, well, we'll meet next month and see what's going on. I mean, they were very steady with their meetings, and they were very involved within kind of integrating with each other so that all of these things could smoothly go into place. So for the general program, it opened Thursday night on August 1st. We had a Friday event, a Saturday event, and a Sunday event. Now, during these events, we had special things. So your Friday event was just receptions and banquets and welcoming of the people who were able to come back and speeches. Saturday was what they called the Grand Gala Day. And the Grand Gala Day was quite the event because they started at the crack of dawn and went until very late at night. I'll go in more detail in a minute. And then Sunday, all the churches were open. So it wasn't just the Congregational Church. It was St. Teresa's. It was the Methodist Church. Any churches, and some of them had speakers that came back to churches. Like we had one gentleman who had preached at the Congo Church. I think it was the Congo Church for like 4.5 years, and he had moved to New Jersey, but he came back, and he did some preaching while he was here on Sunday. Okay, so Thursday night was the bonfire night. People were just starting to come in, get settled. People were opening their homes to friends and relatives, and people were getting settled in. Food was being offered and whatnot. And so on Thursday night, they decided that it would be fun to set bonfires on the high hills of Shrewsbury. So in doing that, they had different committees for the different hills. So we had them built on Prospect Hill, Union Hill, Rawson Hill. My little list here. Okay, here they are. Something called Seaver Hill. I don't know exactly what that would be today, but Seaver Hill, it says near the center. Meeting House Hill, Rawson Hill, Hollows Hill, Union Hill, Goulding Hill, and Prospect Hill. There was also additional fires that they started on the western slopes of Hutchins Farm. And it says that it caused for great rivalry until late in the evening. It says one gentleman on Rawson Hill, he had a grand time by himself up there. He, he had a committee. I guess the committee didn't work too well together. In fact, most of it was his family. So Thomas Bates was on Rawson Hill, and he was trying to get people to bring brush and stuff, and nobody was really jumping on the wagon for him. So he went a little nutty, and he started cutting down trees, and he was hauling them with horses. He was mowing brush, digging out several kinds of wood, and then he decided that he wanted to make the bonfire the best of all of the bonfires. So he added a barrel of kerosene. Now, whether he won the competition, because they all seemed to be like having a rival connection with all of this, but kerosene was his end game. And then on Friday night, by Friday night, a lot of the people who were in town, settled in town, and everything was decorated. Now, I kind of want you to use your own, like, close your eyes if you have to, use your own imagination, be artsy, and think about what I'm telling you, because you got to think of this as being 1907, okay? You're thinking of a population of about 2,000, and then you're thinking about some of these things I'm telling you. So on Friday, they had, like I say, speakers, they had refreshments, they had banquets, they had bell ringing. But one of the big things they had was electric lighting. There were lights all over Shrewsbury Common, all around the center, and all around Hickey's Leather. So we didn't really even have a full town of electricity yet. So it was like a white city in Shrewsbury Center for Old Home Week. Not only that, but they had all kinds of huge Japanese lanterns. The town hall had a huge big star on it. It was like 12 feet. It illuminated. You can see all the buntings. We had people from Denholm and McKay, designers for the store, and Barnard, Sumner, and Putnam. Their designers came into town, and they helped decorate buildings. They helped decorate public homes. They asked people to clean up your yards, make it look great, make it look welcoming. And people from these two huge department stores that we all know about came in and helped decorate, came up with ideas like the big stars, and down on Hickey there was moons added to it. And so, like I say, they went a little nuts, and it was, so I mean, just stop and think of what our center looks like with just the Christmas lights in the common. And think of all these big electric lights, which would have been a whole different thing than these little tiny lights that we use now, all over the center of town and all down in Lower Village. So I don't know. I mean, I think that sounds pretty cool myself. Yeah, so they had, like I say, they had the bonfires. On Thursday nights, they had reunions at the town hall. They had banquets in the evening. And it was hoped that many of the town's former residents would be speakers. And then after that, they planned dancing and music late into the evening. On Saturday, we had the Grand Gala Day. Here's a couple. Like you can see the center. There's the library with all its buntings, and that's Center School, and the town hall. Their colors they chose for this event was red, white, and blue, so it worked out good. So they used a lot of what patriotic bunting would be. See, and Chris even put red, white, and blue on my table for me. They, like I say, we had a huge banquet. When we come up to the program a little bit further, they list like some of the menu of some of these foods that were served at that time. And so this is the high school. Everything not only was decorated with all this red, white, and blue crepe paper and buntings, and you got to stop and think of all the electric lights and huge Japanese lanterns hanging and whatnot. But every one of these buildings that housed one of the events also was loaded with flowers. And I mean, it wasn't just a bouquet of flowers. You know, they had like 30,000 sweet peas in different colors. They had like, I don't know, like 6,000 or 7,000 different ferns. They didn't like just pick one fern. They listed in the articles that they picked maidenhair and rock. And so they went and got all this stuff, and they were just like every building, the churches, the town hall, and they used the upper level of the town hall. And that town hall upper level was all in red, white, and blue with a huge Japanese lantern hanging in the center, and then all of these flowers. And I mean, they had everything. It says all the buildings that were held, that held the different events, were decorated with flowers. They were ranged from potted plants, ferns, sweet peas in many different colors, geraniums, daisies. It was said that there were over 30,000 sweet peas used throughout the event, and somewhere around 26,000 different other plants, including ferns. So that was a lot of plants. So like I say, you got to use your imagination to go back in time for these things. We put one of Cook's greenhouse's pictures in, because some of the flowers probably came from there. So you can just stop and think somebody went in there and picked all those flowers for one event. And this is the, like I say, the upper level of the town hall. That area was used quite a bit for events in years back. And so they had draped the walls, like I say, with large flags. They had red, white, and blue. They had the Japanese lanterns. And the hall was filled to capacity. Maynard spoke with greeting of all the different people that had returned. And there had been an old home week song that had been written for the occasion, along with several poems. So we had all kinds of things going on like that. And yeah, like I said, then we had, like I said, the illuminating committee on Friday night. Like I say, they had all the lights and stuff like that. And then this is an excerpt from the song. It says it was to the tune of Maryland, My Maryland, which I have absolutely no clue what that sounds like. So, but it was kind of cool because I thought this would be a good little paragraph to take out of it, because it says the hills agleam with light, which is what they wanted to present as a first welcoming in with all the bonfires. Blaze the old town's greetings. Welcome home, she calls tonight, friends and loved ones meeting. And this was written by Abby Harlow Shepherd, and it's in the Old Home Week booklet.
I know how the tune goes.
Would you like to get up and sing it?
Put it back on the other words.
Wow.
See the hills agleam with light, blaze the old town's greeting. Welcome home, she calls tonight, friends and loved ones meeting. It's the same.
Oh, okay. Well, there's like a bunch of stanzas.
Before the Preakness horse race.
Well, thank you, Gia. That was great. Okay, so Saturday, like I say, this is the kind of the program from Saturday, starting early. They had sunrise salutes, wake up parade from Shrewsbury, brass bands. Now we had remnants of the Shrewsbury brass band, so they were kind of pulled together by other people. But we also had brass bands from Marlborough and Worcester, so we had, there was quite a few. We had floats that were just regular floats, floats for trades, fire companies, burlesque, which was basically the horribles. Or in the middle of the afternoon, they had a clam dinner on the common. There was like about 300 people that attended that. They had certain speakers, addresses, music, band concerts. The other thing that they had added in when they started planning this was that they wanted to have some kind of sports events. So basically, it boiled down to being mostly ball games, but there were other sport things going on. So the visitors and their families all got together, and they said in one of the articles there was great rivalry there as well. And then they had band concerts, and then, of course, they had the general illumination, more of the lights, and they had a huge display of fireworks that night. So here's a couple of some of the floats that you see here. So, like I say, they went through all this stuff, and then it was time for the parade. And they were about 45 minutes late starting the parade, which was... They were all confused by this because had been doing everything right on time. There was no delays or anything. So what happened was that the stagecoach had flipped over, and he was supposed to be in the parade. And they couldn't write it. So they had to wait until they could write it up and get it back on its wheels and get all the decorations back on it and get the people back in it before they could put it into the parade. So the parade was about 45 minutes late, all because of the stagecoach. And this here was also an ode written. Reverend Frank Pomeroy, he'd come in. I've got some of the names at the end here. I'll tell you where some of them came from. He read exercises at the town halls. This was 20 stanzas. Can you imagine standing all this time or sitting all this time while he goes through 20 stanzas? Chris sat and counted them. That's why we know. She's crazier than I am. And this is some of the excerpts from that program. We picked out a few that we thought kind of, like you could relate to easier, but it's talking about, the common and village streets, ancestral homesteads. And this is really... The verses here is really kind of really pushing as to what the whole idea of Old Home Week was to bring people home. And like in New Hampshire, the hope was to bring people home, say from Ohio, and they get back to New Hampshire and go, oh, so much nicer here, I'm going to stay. That's what was hoped. And I'm sure that was what was hoped in town, too, is that some of these people that have gone off, come back home and go, wow, I really missed Shrewsbury. It was so nice, and this was nice. So, I mean, they kind of filled in some of these things here, about stagecoaches and days, miss the day of long ago, and familiar forms and faces. And so there was lots of these kinds of things written for this event. And so, like I say, Saturday had more bonfires, receptions, banquets, parade, clam bake on the common, decorations in honor of the event. Here's another little article that tells you, like I say, in heavy detail. So if anybody wants to sit and actually read all of the events, I'll be more than glad to let you have it. This was the parade route. The parade route actually started in Lower Village, probably because Mr. Hickey was Grand Marshal. So it started in Lower Village, which never happens nowadays. It came Maple Ave. It went over to Wesleyan, over to Grafton Street, to the center of town, and then back to its start point. So basically it made, and you made the great comment, she says they made like a Big Dipper move, which they did. They came up, and then they went out and around and came back again. So it was actually formed like a Big Dipper. So... And this is Hickey and Green and Hickey on the parade day. And look at how beautiful it was. They had hung stuff everywhere. And so Saturday also we kind of sat down and put some of the stuff in, gave you a little detail on some of the floats. Like I say, the Marlboro Brass Band was a division. We had lots of different divisions, so we kind of like tried to throw things in together. There's the stage with Walter Warren that they had to flip around. The Grange had a float. The district schoolhouses had floats. A lot of them had like teachers and children on these things. So it wasn't just District Number 6 that you see down below, District 2. A lot of the district schools, 3, they also had a float that contained Indian canoes and teepees because of the oldest inhabitant, that they called it the oldest inhabitant float. They also had a float called the Queen of May, and back again with our flowers. All these floats were decorated with ribbons, bows, crepe, buntings, and flowers. And the Queen of May was covered with pink roses and all kinds of evergreen. And the number 2, it says here that we can't see it in our pictures because they're black and white, but the number 2 was white and yellow. The number 3 was young women in white. District school had red, white, and blue. They followed the decor of the event. And then there were private carriages, people, Lawrence Stone, Gleason, children with baskets and horseless carriages. And so it was quite the event. And this, of course, once again, is the old town hall and the Hickey. And here's some of the horse-drawn carriages. This here is the Walter Warren stage. And here's some of the horse-drawn carriages. Now, I want you to notice in the bottom picture, both bottom pictures, but the one on the left mostly, there is a huge banner that was across Main Street. And they had it specially made that said, "Welcome home." And in this one here, you kind of just get to see the home, but you can see it's like a big netting, and they tied it across. So, for the money that they had, they did very well. Here's one of this is the Shrewsbury Brass Band with Harry Mitchell. Like I say, some of the people were gone. Hiram had retired and whatnot. So these were kind of people that were just still, and they dressed like the Horribles. And here's some more parade floats. We had one with Uncle Sam in it. This white one is quite fancy down here on the right. Maybe that's the May one. She's all in white. Here's some of our horseless carriages. So somebody spent a lot of time down there photographing things. And they're all postcards, which meant that they could have been probably easily assessed. Also, the parade, like I say, they had divisions. So the first and second divisions, they had bands, they had the engines, the fire engines, carriage division, they had trades. So there was ice wagons and companies set aside. They had milk teams, and so they kind of set up the divisions so that you would get a grouping of things. And it says here that the Old Home Parade was best ever.
I have a question.
You do?
Yes. They serve ice cream at this event at all? They must have.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did.
I was just curious. I know it's a little early to ask questions, but.
And then, like I say, we had speakers and we had everything. Like I say, it says here this is the parade. It said it was better than Worcester's Old Home Week parade. And Boston had Old Home Week. So we supposedly had the best parade in the early 1900s when Old Home Weeks were being spread around. So we beat Worcester on ours. Frank Hickey was jubilant, and the decorations along the march were pretty and profuse. Like I say, you have to read old articles to really appreciate what you're reading here, because everything was a whole different thing. So Saturday we had Congressman Washburn back in town to speak. Selectman Frank T. Hickey was the marshal of the parade, and Charles Knowlton was the secretary of the parade committee. So they also got their pictures in the paper. This is the meal, the menu from the actual program. I said, we're typing it in, and I'm going to her, I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
If I should wait a little longer, they did have ice cream.
Spent a lot of money.
And I mean, look at this stuff, though. I mean, you know, they had salmon, they had lobster, you know. So they had a big deal. And then this here was the program that's listed in the book. The program, you can look at the programs here. And it lists the master ceremonies, it welcomes Herbert Maynard, you know, so. And then on Saturday, they had some more bonfires, more lights, more beacons, more fireworks. A lot of the electricity after the old home event was over, we had thanked the people that were helping us. But the people that helped us put all this stuff together was the Electric Power Maintenance Company of Worcester and the Worcester Consolidated Railroad. They were the ones that were assisting in the lanterns and the lighting and all of that. Washburn spoke. And then on Sunday, it was more, of course, it was Sunday, so it was more of a religious-oriented date. Reverend John Scudder spoke. He came from New Jersey. So he had preached here for about 4.5 years, left here, and went to New Jersey. So he came all the way from New Jersey. And then once again, you'll see all the churches were decorated. And these are some of the plants that were decorated. And I mean, they didn't take any pictures of the plants, but from the descriptions in the columns, these weren't like a pot here and a pot there. I mean, they were huge bundles of flowers. And that's a picture of St. Teresa's, because each church was open and was able to have an event. And then the Congregational Church had their own events going on, speakers, services, and this one here lists a little bit like begonias, hydrangeas, geraniums. All these plants were like all over the place. And then they had special services. They had closing ceremonies at the town hall with a chorus of about 40 voices singing. And at this point, we were starting to kind of close up the Old Home Week celebrations. And once again, you know, during the day on Sunday, we had more speeches, more different events, and more fireworks. We can't have any fireworks nowadays, and they had like fireworks every night. And they had an 8-ox float. We had no pictures of him, but he was there. Celebration ends on Sunday in a blaze of light and shooting rockets. So we had like all kinds of things going on. So like I say, you know, if you close your eyes and you think about some of these things I talk about, you know, you can almost kind of picture these buildings, many of which are still here, you know, covered with all of these flowers and lanterns and flags and crepe paper. And some of the residents that did come home for the event was a Professor Homer Rice. He was in Swansea. Colonel Noah Plimpton from Wellesley. George Herbert Hallow from Worcester. Edgar Warren from, he at that time was the mayor of Newton. Frank Pomeroy from Lynn. There was a Judge Hollis Cobb that came, but they didn't indicate where he came from. John Scudder was from New Jersey. John Coffin, who was a teacher, he was in Northborough. William Hallow came from Worcester. Fred Howe, Providence. And even Miss Ethel Harrington appeared. She was from Shrewsbury, but she had been traveling Europe doing all her singing. Some of the other places they said that people came from was Sterling, the South Framingham, Rockland, Vermont, Fitchburg, Bedford, Philadelphia, and Maine. So people did come home. Maybe not as many as they had originally hoped, but so it says. It said according to one of the articles, it says that during one of the events of the history of in the speeches talking about the history. Now, everybody asks me this question, so I'm going to tell you this. Now, how true it is, I don't know, but it says here, according to the history of one of the speakers, recalled at the event, Shrewsbury was named after Charles Talbot, Duke of Shrewsbury. Everybody asks me, well, what's Shrewsbury named from? I have no idea.
Wasn't Shrewsbury, England?
Well, he would have been the Duke of Shrewsbury, yes.
Yeah, right.
This here, at the end of the event, they gave out ribbons, all kinds of awards. This one here was donated to us fairly recently by Robin Harlow. After Ray died, they put the house up for sale, and she had kept bringing me boxes full of goodies. And in it is the cup, one of the award cups. So he must have got an award cup. Also, like I said, the society and the women's club seemed to be the initial roller of this. And it appears as though the Shrewsbury Historical Society also did red, white, and blue ribbons, put their name on, and they must have been awards as well. The cost of the Old Home Week to the town was only $600. They gave us $700. So we ended up with all of this activity, all of these lights, all of the lanterns, all of the people, all of the food, and we had $100 basically left to the good.
That's amazing.
I'd like to,
money, that's about $20,000.
and I'd like to see that happen now. Thank you, because I have no idea how to relate the money over. So yeah, so out of the 700, they gave back 100. And the annual report of 1908 lists all these different things in it because there was a special report done on Old Home Week for the annual report at the end for the end period of 1908, where all that information would have been accumulated and accounted for. So actually, like I say, the town expense left at the town treasury was $110.89. And like I say, the committee, after this, all the committees sent thank you notes and best wishes and please come back again, stay in town, whatever. But the committee also sent a special letter into Worcester to express their appreciation for all the electric current for the 3 nights of illumination. Because we certainly did not have that. I mean, we're talking only a few years before we were still lighting kerosene lights in the center of town. And everybody else was in the dark. If you lived on a farm out on Spring Street, you were in the dark. So, and they also, published, the committee also extended their thanks to the press, the railways, speakers, musicians, all of the people that helped put this thing together. And the best thing about this was that on the night of the first bonfires was the only night that their weather wasn't quite accommodating. It didn't rain, it didn't pour, it was kind of gray, kind of cloudy. The rest of the 3 days, they had perfect weather. Obviously, the photographers were very busy, and a lot of these pictures of the parade and decorations were soon put on sale. So you could go to the town hall, the library, different places, and actually purchase some of these pictures. And I'm sure that because people purchased so many of these pictures, that's why I have a nice collection to offer you. They probably came in dribs and drabs, and this was the program. This was like a souvenir program. And this was like the final little page in the book. Another one of these little paragraphs of blurbs. You don't have to sing for this one. So that was our Old Home Week. And from what I can see, it never happened again. If it happened, I have absolutely not one sheet of paper to prove it. So whatever it was a one-time event. Yeah, yeah.